This is Colosseum Neeson, the premier Liam Neeson action catalog podcast. We're going to go through every single Liam Neeson action movie in descending critical order. So we're starting today. Surprising pick with Darkman, 1990. Written, directed by Sam Raimi, as well as a few other choice players. I'm not going to say them.
Starring some heavy hitters.
Heavy hitters who weren't heavy hitters yet.
Yeah, this is pre-heavy hitters, but like Frances McDormand.
Yeah. Coming off an Oscar nomination, actually.
She
already.
came off of Oscar nomination
onto this.
to do this.
Yes. Early in her career. This is like her 5th or 6th movie, but like.
This is a movie that nowadays saying yes to it doesn't.
I don't even know if anyone would, like, I'm not on a producer end. I don't know if something like this would
If somebody
exist.
brought this to me, this exact script, I don't know if I would say yes to it just because it's so out there. But it's the #1 rated Liam Neeson action movie, which is kind of crazy.
And it's Liam Neeson as an action guy before he'd ever really done any of that.
Yeah.
And it's something that he's not going to tap into. He's like 39 or 38 doing this.
Yeah, he's getting older here.
He's going to start doing action movies when he's 60.
Yeah, which makes this one that much more impressive.
So weird.
But we should give a general sense of what this movie is. It's about a guy. It's about a scientist who is working on realistic, like prosthetic, like
synthetic
skin. So basically, he uses his 3D printer in the 1990s.
Yeah.
He uses his 3D printer to create faces. But when we first see him, he's creating a nose. But we'll get there when we get there. But so basically, something bad happens, and his whole face is melted off.
Yes. Horribly injured.
And so, yeah.
Twisted up in a gangland, a conspiracy plot.
Yes. So we should get into, let's get into the first beats of this movie.
Sure.
I will say that something that I noticed off of the top about the 1990s gang members in this movie.
Yes.
Most people, when you look at gangs, maybe you think of switchblades, guns, maybe like a baseball bat with some spikes on it.
Yeah.
You know,
nails through it.
Yeah. This movie, there's a lot of nunchucks.
Lots of nunchucks.
Only really in the beginning. There's no nunchucks after you see the initial.
There's a nunchuck drop off.
There's a nunchuck drop off because in the very beginning, we can set this all up. There's our big bad, Durant. He's coming with his crew, and he's coming to a warehouse that is filled with a rival gang and goons who are just like stacked with
gooniest
weapons.
Goons you've ever seen.
And so they come out and they're like, before you can come into our warehouse, we need to search you. And so they come out, they're searching everybody, and they do like a low shot. And as we're doing this low shot and kind of pushing in, we're seeing guns being dropped to the floor and a ton of nunchucks, because that's what gang members in the 90s did.
That's what they carry.
Yeah. I think of all the things, that's probably the most accurate of things in this entire movie.
That's very well researched.
The use of
that
nunchucks.
It's got these nunchucks. And peg legs.
Oh, okay, yes. So the peg leg is great. So we have a peg leg character who's part of Durant, who is our big bad.
Yeah.
He comes in with this group of guys, and you know the other guy, there's like a skinny James Earl Jones type guy who's got this really great voice, and he mentions something about the peg leg, or the guy with the limp, and he goes,
"Bum leg?"
He goes, "Wooden leg," as he knocks on it, and then things take a crazy turn. They take a crazy turn. Surprise, surprise, it's an Uzi. And he uses it to spray everybody. And the great thing about this is that the one-legged man, his only purpose is to be a gun. Otherwise, he's nothing. He literally just limps and hops around.
Yes. People don't give Durant enough credit for keeping the differently abled in his gang.
True.
For considering them.
I didn't even think about that.
Right. He's a very progressive. He's high-minded. He's working on the city of the future. That kind of. You got to give Durant a little bit of credit there. But this peg leg detail is one of the things that I think could trick people into thinking this is an adaptation. Where we were talking about this. Where
you think it was a comic book that it was based off of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you're inheriting weird detail, like why does Spider-Man fight a goblin?
You and I are not so different.
I'm not like you.
That doesn't really. Well, it's because some guy in the 60s. you'd think like, oh, well, we got to have Mr. Pegleg in
They have a
this.
peg leg guy whose leg is a
With
gun.
an Uzi, yeah.
Yeah, and like that makes sense. But no, this is all from the
Invented.
mind of Sam Raimi.
Yes.
This is all his creation. And so then we see this like the level of like this opening scene really sets up how evil our big bad Durant is. And it also sets up how ridiculous and crazy this movie can get.
Yes.
Because the peg leg man and his like there's like 5 guys that are surrounded by hundreds of goons. There's hundreds of goons who are armed to the teeth. Yet they
There's
cannot.
more goon than civilian in this
Yeah,
city.
there's more goon than civilian, and they've also got goons hidden away in
Spare goons.
There's spare goons hidden away in shipping containers that are also filled with cars.
Yes.
Because they
Fully loaded.
Because when the leg gets ripped off and they start shooting at the other guys, you would think that this hundreds of men would be able to suppress that, but they're not. Even though they have the hundreds of men and cars that just come flying out of shipping containers, shooting Uzis, it's not enough to stop Durant and his men, which then we now know we're dealing with a different kind of enemy here.
We are.
Yeah, we're dealing with something.
We're dealing with Durant.
We're dealing with Durant.
So it's very strange. And I think that what this action scene establishes is this is coming off the tail of the Tim Burton Batman.
Okay.
Where we're mixing this really violent and really gritty with this operatic, silly tone. It's a very interesting kind of batch of movies that comes out in the wake of that Tim Burton Batman. And Sam Raimi had actually tried to adapt Batman. He was very interested in doing that kind of.
Well, Darkman and Batman are very similar.
Very similar. He tried to do The Shadow. Eventually gets turned into an Alec Baldwin movie that Robert Zemeckis was really involved with producing.
That movie, yeah.
And this is also, what am I thinking of? Dick Tracy. Warren Beatty.
Yes, very, because each
very
of those
in the vein of this
characters,
kind of.
each of like the goons that Durant has, very Dick Tracy-esque.
Very
and the way they shoot their guns too. These are low, we've been taught in the world of, in the world of John Wick, we've been taught you hold a gun like this.
Yeah.
You got it anchored against your shoulder. Not in this movie. In this movie, they anchor the guns against their crotch.
Yes.
It's low hanging, so you keep it as low and as close to your crotch as possible, so that when it does recoil, you're screwed.
You are screwed.
So I mean, that's
makes a really neat silhouette, is what it does.
This is. Let us just say this is wildly inaccurate. Okay, fine. Well, I think that.
It's like holding your gun sideways.
Yeah, that was the sideways. As we move later on to the 90s into the early 2000s, a lot of sideways gun holding. But this is lower. We keep it real low and go like this.
The Scarface.
And we don't aim.
No.
We're not aiming for a particular person or spot.
Suppressive fire.
We're just aiming for just the wall.
Yes.
If you can hit somewhere on that wall.
You've probably hit a guy because we are swimming with goons. It's inefficient to pick out an individual.
It is also, it's like, it really shows you that whatever these businesses that these guys are into, their criminal enterprise, it's very successful.
Yes.
Because you got to be able to employ and potentially even house some of these goons. Because where are they all hanging out? I mean, it's a lot. The opening scene is a lot. And after the opening scene, we're introduced to Liam Neeson, who's working in his lab, and he's growing.
Dr. Westlake.
Dr. Peyton Westlake, who's growing a nose with a 3D printer. So it's a synthetic skin nose, but they're very frustrated because what happens to the nose? It doesn't hold together. After 99 minutes?
99 minutes.
99 minutes at all.
The light.
And then and the light, it all bubbles and kind of melts
and goes away. So
that becomes a thing throughout the course of the movie.
One of the best lines in the movie before he's Darkman.
The dark. Oh, of course. The dark. I think the synthetic cells are photosensitive.
This is unbelievable.
What is it about the dark? What secret does it hold?
It's setting it all up.
He brings a lot of gravitas and romance, I think is what's interesting about Liam Neeson, because we're talking about other actors who were considered for this Darkman part.
Yeah. So who do we got? We have-
So Raimi wanted Bruce Campbell, his buddy, who'd done these Evil Dead movies with.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a big enough star for the studio.
ridiculous.
So they turned their eyes to up-and-comers, like kind of names who you could also get away with melting their face off.
Names today that we all
most of the
know.
movie.
Yeah.
Yes, all people who really did pan out well. Gary Oldman is one who's in the
Huge.
running. Who's Academy Award winner and this and that.
There's a lot of Academy Awards.
A lot of Academy Award winners involved in Darkman, but Bill Paxton as well was also really in the running and really wanted to do this movie and actually mentioned the audition to Liam Neeson,
Who's a jerk.
who then went in, swept it out from under him.
You know, that's really, when you think about it, what a jerk move.
You're just trying to get a job. Who knows if Paxton would have gotten picked? But
Oh, hey, look, I just tried out for this movie that I'm really interested in called Darkman. And Liam Neeson's like, oh, really? He probably didn't even say anything. He's probably just
got
like,
real quiet for a minute.
interesting.
Dark Man. you
I
said?
gotta go. And then he went directly to casting
Central casting.
to try it out.
Heard you
and he
looking for
got
a
it.
Dark Man.
And so he like you said, he is a very romantic character in the beginning
Yes.
of this. Like, so he has this thing, he's struggling to get his synthetic skin to hold, but then we see him with his love interest, Frances
Julie.
McDormand, Julie, and they are in the throes of passion.
Yes.
They seem like they're really connected. He really loves her. She seemed to really like him. And
She's a career woman.
She's a career woman, and that comes up because she leaves to go to work. And he comes out as almost like, it's weird because when he came out to the car after she's getting in the taxi to go, he comes out as if he's running out of time.
Yes.
You know, as if
He's cosmically aware of.
yeah, like something is telling him like, I need to marry this woman. And so he goes and proposes to her in a very like terrible way. It's a terrible proposal.
Yeah.
And so she gives him an equally terrible response, which is, no. Like
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. And I got a career that I'm trying to, deal
Yeah.
with. And you're making skin and stuff in a room somewhere.
And that's a bit of the Frances we know in the modern age shining through.
Yeah.
The career woman. But Frances, not really into this movie. Like, she's very good in it, but from what I understand,
She was like a little bit turned off.
This is her testing, like, can I be this action movie person? Can I be this big movie star?
Yeah.
Frances McDormand, very famous, very acclaimed, not doing this type of movie. And
This is the last type of movie like this.
Yes.
Right? Like she's not done anything else that's like,
she'll show up for like a little bit of Transformers, but she's not gonna be a lead character.
no,
And-
she's too talented.
yes.
You know?
Well, and that's the thing is you hear her talking about is camera in this movie constantly moving,
Yeah.
and so this is something that I guess frustrated her on production and strained her relationship with Sam. That's now mended mostly, but
Okay.
it's this kind of thing where the camera is constantly moving, and I think it was specifically she was doing a crying scene where she's like, well, if I'm crying and you're smashing the camera up into my face, like it's going to look ridiculous.
Weird.
Like,
Yeah.
how do I modulate? It's versus locking the camera down and letting an actor act.
Yeah.
It's much more impressionistic. It's much more
that's-
visual storytelling.
There's a moment that we'll talk about later. It's probably one of the most famous scenes, but
Yeah.
they do these close-ups.
Yes.
And they do these like a very emotional close-ups, and then the lighting will change. And like it's almost as if they're taken out into another room. And it's-
Non-diegetically.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But as we move on, so we find out that as Frances, Julie is going to her job
Yes.
where she found something that shows that her boss is in bed with a criminal,
Yeah.
Durant. He's in bed with the criminal, and she has a document, and her boss basically says like, I do evil stuff because I'm trying to build a city.
The city of the future.
The city of the future, which just looks like a clear city. It just looks like regular buildings, but clear. So
That's a superior type of building. You can see. You don't have to go in the building.
no, you
can
just you can see everything that's happening in the building, outside of the building.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to go in. So she goes there, and basically, she's it's not threatened, but basically says like these people will do anything to get that, so you got to give that thing back to me. She doesn't even have an opportunity to get that thing. Because Durant's people, which is crazy because this whole thing could have been avoided if she had been like, I'll get the document and I'll give it back to you. But instead, her boss sends Durant and his crazy people, his one-legged guy and the other
Goon
Uzi
Squad.
holding the Goon Squad. He sends them in there, and they completely jack up Liam Neeson's like his whole place. And really, all they needed to do was he had no idea that this paper was even there, which is like the crazy part. He's like, I don't know what
very
you're talking
tragic.
about.
Yeah.
They literally could have walked in and been like, hey, do you have this document? And he'd be like, no. And then they could have just looked and then taken it and walked out. But instead, they kill his assistant.
Yes.
Seems like a perfectly nice guy.
Nice fella.
And they come up with this, like, they boil his face. They boil Liam Neeson's face in acid.
Dunk him.
They dunk him in acid. And then to make things worse, they blow up the whole lab.
Yes.
And his body comes flying out.
In a very insane, complicated way to blow up a lab to give you time to exit. They have the cigar in the alcohol, the drinking bird ready to
They had
set off
planned
the
this out.
explosive gas. I mean, Durant, smart thinker. He's running through, all right, how am I going to blow up this place? in
Yeah,
such
how am I
a
going to blow this
complex
place up
time?
so I can leave a message to literally no one? Because
Yes.
there's no witnesses, but I'm going to do this thing to this poor guy.
Well, perhaps if he had survived, Dr. Westlake had survived, he could have informed on Durant. You know, he's got to cover his tracks.
But it was a lot. Durant and company came in hot.
Yes,
They came in real hot.
very hot.
And before they leave, though, because we have to say that in the opening scene, we find out that Durant has a little thing that he likes to do to his enemies where he cuts off their fingers.
Yes, he does.
So he likes to cut off fingers. So before he leaves Liam Neeson, who he assumes is dead, he takes his assistants. He requests,
Bring the Asian's fingers.
which is an insane thing to say, because it's also kind of like he must already have a white guy's finger, because you didn't need
Sure, his collection.
he didn't need it, but he could have had like a mangled finger. Right?
Could have had a mangled finger. See, that he's very progressive with the disabled, blind spot when it comes to race. So we've just got to hold Durant accountable for, you know, there's you take the good with the bad. We're not trying to, you know,
to write him
don't
off
cancel
completely.
#cancel Durant. Like there's good things to this man, but
Yeah, well, the thing is, he wants diversity in his finger collection.
he does.
You know, and he's got enough white fingers.
Sure.
He needs to get an Asian finger in there. He had a black finger in the very beginning.
He did.
And the crazy thing is that it basically is just those two fingers. We find out later that he has more fingers, but his finger thing was really just twice. And he was kind of over it.
Sure.
So either way, Liam Neeson gets blown up and his face destroyed and
Obliterated.
He gets obliterated. And a scene that is so good. It's one of my favorite scenes. Because Julie, Frances McDormand, she watches the building blow up. And we see her scream. And her scream turns into like her now at the funeral.
Yes.
You know, it's a great transition. You know, she's crying and now she's crying at the funeral. It's a really great transition.
Carrying that emotion through.
I don't know if you noticed this about the funeral. And it's got a lot to say about our Peyton Westlake, our Liam Neeson character here. How many people showed up to that funeral? One person. It was Frances McDormand shows up. Julie shows up. She's the only one.
Yeah.
He's been so busy with his synthetic skin that he just doesn't talk to anybody else.
Nobody in his life.
Nobody else in his life.
Presumably his assistant would have gone, but
He would have gone, but he was dead
you know,
too.
he couldn't make it.
And then there's a great conversation that takes place between the gravedigger
Yes.
and the taxi driver. And they said, well, what happened to this guy? And he's basically like, oh, he was blown to smithereens. The only thing that was left was an ear.
Didn't take me long to bury that.
That's one of the lines in there. So presumably there's just an ear.
Yes.
I'm
Darkman's
wondering, do
ear.
they have like a full casket? Or do they have like
little
just a box?
I don't know. You think he would have cremated? I don't know.
And it's weird.
They're just
And
putting a
what's crazy, it's
tombstone.
like, it's his ear? Is it actually his ear?
I want to say, yeah. You're just picturing these crime scene investigators. Like, are there any trace of Dr. Westlake?
And so it's like we got his ear,
Yep.
and then we can just give that to medical examiner, and they can just
Good
say,
enough.
Yep. It's like something out of Harry Potter. It was like a finger was found.
Yes.
And so we assume that he's dead. So no finger was found, just an ear, and obviously he's not dead. Because where do we find him? We find him at a medical facility. Can you explain what's happening at this place?
Not really.
Because we go to it's a medical facility and we see him. He's strapped to a wheel.
He's getting spun.
He's getting spun on a wheel,
He's
which
being studied.
I really want to know where in Sam Raimi's medical, like, what doctor did he like talk to or consult with? It was like, you know, you spin him, you put him on a big plank, and you just spin him.
See, his brother Ivan is a dentist.
Okay.
So that is a doctor in his will, and I
So
believe has a screenplay credit on that. So maybe that's, you know, I'm not an expert in the field of dentistry, but it feels like medical malpractice to treat this horrible burn
This person
victim.
who's been in a terrible accident, terrible who's just now being spun, and then there's a nurse there who's like, or a doctor who's explaining to her residents what's going on. She's explaining that this person doesn't feel pain, that they've done something on him, and she pokes him. She pokes him with a needle, and she's like laughing at this guy, and he's listening to all of it.
Yes.
He's listening to all
even
of it.
without his ear, he's picking up.
Even without his ear that's in the ground somewhere.
Darkman can listen without ears. He can talk without lips.
Yeah, he can talk without lips. He can do a lot.
Yeah.
He's very capable.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, he escapes.
Yes.
And then he escapes, and then he kind of goes back to the remains of his
bombed out lab.
His bombed out lab, looks like, picks up a TV, like rubs it, and then is like, you're not gonna work.
Yeah.
And then what does he do? He then goes to try and find, or does he do that before? When does he go to search
He's
for?
going to get Julie. I think it's important to note that he has been changed by this experience. He's not just deformed.
Oh, his emotional state is also.
His emotional state, but he's physically enhanced.
He's physically.
He's
so
stronger.
He's stronger, and he
doesn't
can't feel pain. But he's also like emotionally unstable.
Yes.
Because his emotions go bigger. So when he's happy, he's really happy. When he's sad, he's really sad. He's really just manic at this point.
Yes, he's very but like bipolar, like manic depressive.
Yeah.
Where he's
and so he's dealing with a lot. He's dealing with a lot. Still hasn't looked at himself in the mirror, despite the fact that he's got to feel the rags. But he doesn't. He doesn't feel anything. So he doesn't necessarily know that he's covered in rags or looks like a mummy. And so what does he do? He goes to try and find his lady love on the street in the dark.
As you do. As you do.
And he reaches out to her, like sounding truly creepy.
Yes.
And she looks at him and screams, which should be an indication that you don't look that good.
Things have changed.
Things are not the same.
Something's a little off here.
Something's off. And then after he kind of gets rejected, he goes to sleep in a puddle in an alley.
Yes.
Which is, there's probably other alleys.
Drier alleys.
Drier alleys that doesn't have a full vortex of water being sucked down into a drain. It looked like he was asleep in like 6 inches of water.
Yeah.
It was like
floating. Waterbed.
It was a lot for him.
He's an aquatic creature, the Darkman.
So now after that, he's kind of sad. He realizes that he needs to kind of rebuild his life.
Yes.
And
literally.
Yeah, he needs
rebuild
to
his own face.
He needs to rebuild his own face in his lab. Mm-hmm. So he goes and finds a lab. He just finds this lab.
Derelict lab.
That's got everything he needs to create another, HQ. Mm-hmm. Even a cat that he tries to befriend, and the cat, he reaches down to the cat. He's like, "Oh, hello, friend," and the cat just hisses at him, proving that nobody likes you, and that you're so hideous that the world can't stand
even
to
a
have
humble
you around.
cat.
Yeah,
and that's he's so tragic, universal monster. He's not just superhero. It's very he feels so deeply, and he loves so much,
hard,
but he's eternally now separated
from society.
Yes.
And even the cats don't like him.
Yeah.
That cat sticks around, but not only because he's being fed, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's
very transactional. Right? That's a lot of cats. We don't go straight on Darkman.
That is a lot of cats. So where are we now? He's built up his new spot.
Yes.
And he's not really understanding like the nature of his thing yet, because he had seen his face and was kind of disturbed by his face. But the thing that really sets him off is his own hands. And he realizes that he's working on he's working to try and get his face back. And he uses a photo, and I thought it was actually really good that he used the photo, and then he's like, "Oh, there's a piece of my face that's missing in this photo. I need to kind of use quadrants and put my face back together." It's like he
really reasons it out.
He's really doing for a guy who doesn't have anything left. he was able to like put this whole thing together. He's able to
He's a genius.
He's a genius. He's a genius. He's able to build a 3D printer out of nothing in a time when 3D printers were not a thing.
No.
And then he starts on his revenge quest, essentially.
Yes.
Right?
He's twisted. He's angrier, and he's being frustrated that he can't crack this face melting into light problem.
Yes.
That he must become a creature of the night, and gosh, does he embrace it?
He embraces it, and he embraces it by
systematically
going after Durant's crew.
Yes.
And the first one he goes after is Sam Raimi's brother.
Ted Raimi, who's in a lot of Sam's projects, very often being...
Food poisoning scare, Sweep City.
Some food got poisoned?
I'm a little nauseous, yeah.
See, that's a big thing about Sam Raimi, is he loves to torture his actors, he loves to torture his friends.
Sam's great, except he's got this strange thing for verbal and physical abuse.
I told you to stay off this set and never come back.
Any time that Sam can throw something at me, he will. And he beat Bruce with a stick.
Sam doesn't hit me or verbally abuse me quite as much as he did before, because there's too many people standing around now. If your crew is only 6 people, you can do whatever you want to the lead actor. No one's gonna tell.
So there's a lot of I was thinking that when Liam was getting shoved through those glass cabinets.
Yeah.
In the movie. It's very different just in the context of his wider action movies, where he's usually Mr. Competent.
Yes.
He's not really getting beat. This takes some damage.
Oh, he has no. He had no chance.
No chance.
And to be fair, he was so confused.
So confused.
You're working. You finally figured out that your little.
He's in another headspace.
Yeah, your synthetic skin. Oh, it stays together in the night. And he has this revelatory moment where he realizes what's going on, and then a crew of crazies walk in and just beat him up.
And you can see why he would go after those crazies. And
100%.
It's so crazy how these things flow into one another. So again, he's going after poor Ted Raimi. I mean, horrible goon, but
he's the first to fall. That's where he gets all of his information from.
Yes.
And he proves to us in this moment that he is no longer human, because that Sam Raimi, who's begging for his life, even though he's a horrible person, Ted Raimi, begging for his life, did some bad things. And he gets...
It's great. He holds him up from a sewer grate into oncoming traffic as all these cars are whipping by him.
And the way that he's held up,
yes,
it looked like he was on a puppet. Like he was like a puppet.
Yes, he's wiggling.
He's kind of waving back and forth, screaming, and then finally gets crushed by a car.
Ted is a great worm.
Yeah,
I think of all things. Like you really, you're into Darkman's head, where you're thinking, man, I really do want to see this guy get pancaked.
Because a part of me was like, don't pull him down, keep him up there,
keep him up
there. He's a horrible person. He was. I mean, it was very bad. All these
like
villains. These villains are. I was thinking about it as I was watching it, and what they did to the assistant, and what they did to the other poor guy, and what they did to Westlake. These are some real bad villains.
Bad dudes.
Real bad dudes. So everything that they got, they deserved.
Yes.
So, but this was the first time he did this one without any prosthetics. This is his first kill, right? Mm-hmm. And so then he gets the information, and the way he goes about getting these guys back, it's pretty clever. It's pretty clever because he just basically sets up appointments.
Yes, he does.
He sets up an appointment and then wears their face, and then does a couple of lines of dialogue, a couple practice lines, where he's like, "Yes, I'll take it. Yes, I'll take it." And then
that's the thing with Darkman, is he can do really good impressions. That is not a superpower. That is just a skill.
That's just the natural thing that he's capable of. Without
thank
lips.
God.
Without his lips, he's able to kind of change his voice and kind of manipulate these people who clearly they hang out all the time.
Yes.
But I mean, what are you supposed to do? The first guy, so the second guy he goes after, I didn't know what he was doing. He'd packed his bags, he had the plane tickets, and he got him changed into a new suit, and he put him to sleep. But then he goes to a meeting to collect the money as this guy, wearing this guy's synthetic skin that he used just based off of a picture that he had. He takes the money. Durant and his guys think that this guy's stealing, so they find him. He's in his bed in a suit, so confused about
Taking
what's
a nap.
happening. He's just taking a nap, so confused about what's going on, and is thrown out of a window because he's assumed to be, stealing money and leaving. And he's thrown out of a window. He crashes into a taxi. A woman screams.
That's a good Sam Raimi signature. Is women screaming?
Women screaming.
Really into that.
Like she screams. She looks at this man who's dead on the top of a taxi. For some reason, she's compelled to turn around, where she sees Liam Neeson, Dr. Westlake, but he has the same face as the guy who's on top of the cab. So she looks at him. She's so confused, and then he looks at his watch and he's like, "Oh crap! It's been 98 minutes."
Precise. It's very Cinderella.
It's very Cinderella because it's also so weird. It's like, why are you? You know that you have a time limit. You have this clock in your hand.
Yeah.
Why are you here? He should have been gone already.
Gotta see. Well, he's changing. He's taking joy in these horrible
because
acts.
did he anticipate that they were going to throw him out the window?
Maybe he did. Maybe he was going to hear gunshots.
Yeah, he was hoping for something. But either way, he was waiting a little bit too long, because then his face starts to melt. And he does this great thing in this movie. Whenever his face starts to melt, I remember Seinfeld when Kramer was smoking cigars.
Look away, I'm hitting.
Yeah, that is exactly what Liam Neeson does every time his face starts to fall. He covers his face and he grunts and he runs away into the shadows in a way.
It's very impressionistic. It's very
that's
very
the
big.
thing. Compared to like any of the other movies that are on this list, this is the one where I feel like he had to act big.
Yes.
Like he had to act bigger than this. Prepared him for every other role that he'll ever play. Because he had to go crazy emotions, like super excited, and then go really, really angry. Really, like it's a lot. He's like it's a big gap that he's got to cover.
Range.
Yeah, it's a huge range that he's got to cover.
And he's fearless doing it. Like, you can see where, especially if you're an up and comer, you're trying to get your career going, you're trying to be a movie star.
Yeah.
You'd be worried about looking silly. But he completely trusts that Sam's gonna put all these pieces together and make something that, because it's silly and you're laughing, but you are really emotionally grounded. You're really in there in the moment with him.
Well, that was the thing that was so surprising. I just didn't understand how, like, this is one of those things where it's tough to act like this. This is really hard, because if you try to get me to act like this, I'd be thinking I look like a fool.
Yes.
Constantly. Not Liam Neeson.
No.
He is fully committed to this.
So committed.
And so, where are we now? He's killed 2 people.
He's
right?
moving through goons. He's checking them.
And then he reaches out. He reaches out to his girl. Well, we should back up a little bit, because Frances McDormand's character, she's feeling really sad after the death of her guy.
Why wouldn't you?
She was super sad. And she goes to her boss, and her boss is like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear, that this happened." And she's like, "I don't want to talk about it. Frankly, I don't want to talk about it. It makes me really upset." So she starts to walk away. The boss comes around. He goes, "I'm sorry. I understand. I know that trust me, I've been through something similar as well." So we're assuming that somebody broke into his,
Something's up.
Something happened terrible.
This is a city with a lot of goons.
Something terrible happened to him as well. But he uses something that he diffuses her sadness with dance.
Yes.
He says.
Yes, he does. He makes some moves on it.
He goes, the thing that always makes me feel better is dancing. And he just starts to dance with her, and immediately she starts smiling and forgets about Liam Neeson.
For about a moment.
For a moment. Until Liam Neeson shows up at his own grave to say hello to her. And he's being very,
It's evasive. I was in a coma. I'm not dead.
I'm not dead, but there's things I have treatment I have to do, which is this is I thought that this part of the movie where he's trying to explain but not explain what happened is proof positive that when you're with your significant other, if you really love them, you just got to be open and honest. You can't make up excuses.
Your wife, you would tell her if you'd become a dark man?
I'd say, Tiffany, I have something to tell you. I've become a dark man.
Yes.
My face, this
melted
face
off.
Here, remember how I'd been working for years to making a prosthetic face? this is a prosthetic face. I only got like 60 minutes until it starts to bubble.
Well, let's turn the lights off real quick so we can talk a little longer, because this is going to take some. We're going to run through. You know?
Well, the thing one of the questions that I had was like, he's created this prosthetic. He's created a prosthetic hands.
Yep.
He's created a prosthetic face.
Multiple prosthetic faces.
And he knows that, like, you know, he's not. It's going to be hard to have a future with all these things, you know, because he's got to really get a full body suit.
Yes.
He's got to get a full body suit in order for it to work out.
He's still kicking that can down the road that he'll crack this light problem that he can make a nice permanent face.
Well, it's funny because also when he figures out that it's the darkness, he says to his assistant, "At least we know it's the darkness."
Yes.
You know, he has that information.
That safe point, that removal from society.
And we thought that, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so now he's got, you know, he has that bit of information. Now he can go on and kind of rework things so that it doesn't get affected by night. He totally and completely abandons finding out why the dark is, why it's safe in the dark.
Because this is something that Julie not to skip to the end, but, you know, we can solve this, but there are parts of him that are changing to the point where maybe he doesn't even want to go back anymore.
No, I don't want to go back. I want to remain this nameless, faceless person, and I want to have all the faces. But it's weird though, because he goes off and you don't know what he's doing. We'll get to that point, but like he doesn't seem to have any purpose after this movie when you really think about it.
No. we'll get to that, but I think right now we're getting into the carnival.
Oh, so he
this is showing that even with his beautiful, handsome Liam Neeson face, that
he still has this emotional this imbalance.
Something's changed.
So this is the scene when we were first talking about this movie. This is the scene that you showed me.
Oh, I sold you on it, yeah.
You sold me on this by this crazy scene where he goes and he's having fun with her. He's doing the big emotions. He's so happy.
He's manic. He loves her and
he loves her and this is everything. And so, but he's also realizing that he's running out of time. So he's like, I only got 99 minutes. So we gotta win you some prizes. So he steps up to the thing and he steps up to like the game where you like have to knock down the bottles.
Classic rigged carnival game.
And he throws it, he's missing, and then finally he throws it one and it's a perfect strike. But he's told by the carny that he stepped over the line. And this is like, honestly, this carny is one of the carnies, he's telling him this without even looking at him.
The most dismissive carny of all time.
He's one of the most dismissive carnies I've ever seen. And he's like, no, you didn't do it. Now get at it. Like, haven't I told you? And this is also with Sam Raimi, the way he like directed this scene. It was wild because he's just looking off into the distance. The carny is just looking off into the distance. And as Liam Neeson's become more and more enraged, he turns and the carny doesn't become enraged. He's still calm. And he's just like,
which is worse.
Get out of here, you weirdo. And the word freak for Liam Neeson in this movie is a trigger.
I don't want you to think of me as an invalid or some kind of a freak.
Yes.
It is a trigger. The guy puts his fingers like this.
And we got to say that, touches his shirt.
He touches his shirt. And Liam Neeson takes his hand and bends it. He doesn't even, and he turns it into mush. He turns
Jello.
And then he picks him up and throws him through the back of the carny stand.
Smashes
him. And because he really wanted this pink elephant. He had to give the pink elephant.
It had to be perfect. The one diver, and this carny sends him into such a rage. The way we're filming at these Dutch angles and these weird lenses that are distorting it.
Because when he
cracks open to hell.
Yeah, he breaks the fingers. And as he breaks the fingers, there's like all three of them scream.
Yes.
And they do this weird thing where like a red light like lights them up, and then like somebody's screaming, and then we cut to another person screaming, and then there's like a random picture of like Liam Neeson in a clown outfit for whatever freaking reason, like whatever.
All the carnival display.
Yeah, all the carnival stuff. And then he throws him through there, and he grabs the pink elephant, and he's like, she's like, I don't want the pink elephant, and he's like, I'll take it. You're taking the pink elephant. And then she's like, no. And then his face starts to melt.
Yes.
And she's like, what's going on? And he like does his, don't look at me, and then runs away. And she follows him.
She does.
She tracks him all the way down and back to his lair.
Gosh darn it, she loves him.
She loves him. She wouldn't marry him.
Messed up face or not.
She wouldn't marry him before when he was a normal looking person. But now that he's a freak, she's all in.
Yeah.
She's all in. And so what does she do? She follows him back and he doesn't talk to her. And she's basically like saying to him, I'm here for you. You know, I'm here for you. And I would say as a father of a daughter, there's a lot of red flags here. There's a lot of red flags.
Sure.
If my daughter said, Dad, remember that guy that I was dating that
my mild-mannered scientist
boyfriend? My
boyfriend.
mild-mannered scientist boyfriend who was working on prosthetic skin that died. Well, apparently he's not dead. He's back, and he's making prosthetic faces and kind of hanging out in the shadows. He did also break this carny's fingers and throw him through a wall, all to get me a pink elephant. As a father, I'd say, you know, let's take a couple steps back and let's not pursue a relationship with this person.
Put this on ice for a little bit.
Let's put this on.
He's got some things he's got to figure out. He's got more goons he's got to kill.
Well, he also said it too. You know, he said, I got stuff I got to do. He should have listened. She should have listened to him, but
give him space.
You know, she wants what she can't have at this point. She wants this guy who's living in this ramshackle of a warehouse. Like, it seems to be like an old power station of some kind. And she's fully committed, but he's still got the revenge thing. He's still got to deal with
That's taking over as his main concern.
Yeah, he's got to kill these guys who ruined his life. And so that's where we are. She sees him, but he's going after the big bad. He's going after Durant. And because he's also surveilling.
Yes.
He's surveilling all the time. He's constantly trying to like see what they're up to. And so his plan to get rid of Durant is he listens to Durant say like 5 words.
That would be just fine. That would be
just fine.
And that's enough for him to kind of get his impression correct. And then
he's great.
And then so he goes, this is one of the scenes that I love the most. He goes with his prosthetic face as Durant. He goes to a convenience store and he goes, give me all your money to the convenience store guy. And the guy's like, what's going on? This is a robbery. He goes, yeah, this is a robbery. And then he looks into the camera, the security camera, and says,
my name isn't Buddy. It's Durant. Robert G. Durant.
I am Robert Durant.
Just full on self-destruct. Like, in case there was any shadow of a doubt, that's me, Robert Durant.
So he does it so that he could get Robert Durant arrested.
Yes.
Which is
great plan.
It's a great plan.
Works.
It's almost it's a great plan. It works. He gets arrested and he takes over for him in a meeting.
Mm.
And what's great though is like, you know, the gang guy that Durant is supposed to have this meeting with. You know, he does the same thing that all these gang guys do. They stand up to Durant. And then Liam Neeson has like the wherewithal, having never been a villain, having never been in this kind of like a negotiation.
Yeah.
Understands that I'm going to go take my cigar and I'm going to say, you're going to give me that money by the time I'm done with this cigar. And he chops it real little so the cigar is like this big. It's a tiny little cigar. And that's enough. That's enough to send this gang leader, who once again is outnumbering Durant and his guys with weapons. And they're like, oh, okay, man, we better listen.
The Durant aura. It's just too powerful.
It's too powerful. And this is then right after, this is the first time because Durant's in traffic. He's trying to get to this meeting.
That's why we need the city of the future. These roads are absurd. You know, we can't, nobody can get anywhere. We need to get these crystal buildings.
So we can have our drug meetings.
So much easier to avoid traffic when you can see through all the buildings. You can see, there's congestion over there. This is a pretty, you know, we're kind of ragging on the city of the future, but I think that's very viable.
And honestly, the lead character, or not the lead character, but you have Durant, who is the big bad throughout the movie. There's another big bad, but he doesn't seem so big. He's a visionary.
He's a visionary.
He wants his city that you can see through, because that's how you know it's the future. Yes. If you can see through it.
It's the ultimate. It's the light to stand against Darkman. You can physically see through it. Darkman is shadowed and tucked away.
Yeah.
It's everything Darkman stands against in his decrepit lab, and
Yeah,
he's doing his Tin Man shenanigans.
So yeah, because that's right. Right after he realizes that his hands are messed up, he has a complete meltdown where he starts banging things, like kind of destroying his own lab, and then he does what I talked about he does the Mark Wahlberg from The Happening.
Man, science will come up with some reason to put in the books, but in the end, it'll be just a theory. I mean, we will fail to acknowledge that there are forces at work beyond our understanding.
He uses the scientific method to kind of get his bearings and like kind of control his
grounds
emotions.
him to the world.
Yeah, so he's like, well, you're a scientist. Think like a scientist. There it is. There. I have to. Oh, I'm back to my normal self now. Like it's so weird that he.
It's so weird, but you buy it.
I 100%.
Gosh darn, Liam is so keyed in.
I bought it more than I bought Mark Wahlberg's scientific method, which was just terrible.
I don't buy Mark Wahlberg as a high school science teacher.
Should be more interested in science, Jake. You know why? Because your face is perfect.
No.
But I buy Liam Neeson, and this is something that's so unique, I think, about him as a performer. I buy him as action man and killer and scary. You know, he's got this huge.
He's imposing. He's an imposing guy.
But I also buy him as geeky scientist. Like
he played it. Perfect. He played it because he was so passionate about getting this synthetic skin.
Passion's the name of the game for this entire performance.
This whole performance is passion.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he, honestly, like I was saying to a coworker of ours earlier that I'm taking these notes. I'm taking notes throughout this movie. But as we're getting closer to the end, my notes are starting to kind of dwindle because he sucked me in. He sucked me in, and I'm like, I'm all in on where are we going with this. I already know that he's gonna win.
Yeah.
You know, I already know it. But Liam Neeson's his acting in this, as big as it was necessary because the movie is so out of control. The characters are so big. And so, but it's just like, it's one of those movies where from the opening scene, it's so crazy. And it kind of like, there's like crazier moments sprinkled throughout. But at some point, it also just gets straight, like, just kind of normal. It gets straight normal. So, and it's like, oh, I'm like fully invested in this story.
There is a reality to it. Even as we go for the bigger, more operatic moments, you always buy it.
You always buy it,
and you're always moving in this. Is the real thing?
Oh, it's a lot of movement.
I mean, my God.
Or like the helicopter scene.
All right, let's get into the ending.
We got to get there because we're running out of time here. But this is the last bits. He's like,
this is an insane stunt.
They found what's also great is there's a scene. Leading up to the helicopter scene, there's a scene when Frances McDormand breaks up with her boss evil boyfriend.
Yeah.
She comes back. She's coming back to the HQ where Liam Neeson is. There is a moment, because this is the first time she's really ever seen him.
Yeah.
So she yells his name, and he comes to the window. And then there's like a little bit of a moment when you see her face, like where she's like, "Oh, should I be here?" Like you think that she's gonna be like, she's gonna look up and be like, "It's okay," but she looks up and she's like, "Oh my God!" And then as soon as she has that, cars come and it's Durant and his evil crew, and they take her and they get her out of there.
Damsel in distress.
And then in this lawless town, they start like shooting up at him, and then he's running away while Durant in a helicopter is shooting rockets.
Yes. But Durant gets his hands dirty.
He gets his hands real dirty.
And this is, again, insane. Like, I mean, when we get to Darkman hanging off of this helicopter.
He's hanging off the helicopter, swinging through the town.
Real stunt guy dressed as Darkman, getting taken through city street, sweeping by these skyscrapers. Again, this is one of those where you're like, they would not be like this today.
No, and this also shows though that the budget of this movie at the time, it was a $16 million budget, and you could see
every dollar.
You can see where the money went. Like he had a helicopter getting chased by another helicopter. He had a helicopter. He had several helicopters blowing up. He had that. Like, because Durant and his crew are getting followed by another helicopter. Finally,
yes. Helicopter chase.
I was thinking to myself, is there any police force?
Can we just shoot bazookas?
There's never. I'll tell you this much: you only see like 2 police.
Yes.
Like throughout the entire course of the movie, there's no police officers. Durant has free reign to to fly around the city.
For this guy to get arrested, he has to literally look in the camera and say, I am
and
Durant.
even still,
I am robbing this place. I am
even
Durant.
still immediately arrested.
Yeah.
Immediately released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, they're like, well, we got to pick him up for a minute. Like,
And it's like, we'll take him in and then we'll get him out real quick and he can go back to doing his robberies.
Yeah.
And so we have this big helicopter scene and then, he takes out the one helicopter and then Liam Neeson with his science brain decides, I'm going to attach this hook to a truck.
Amazing.
And then that truck will just happen to be going through a tunnel at this particular time. And then the helicopter crashes into the side of a bridge and falls to the ground.
Very important to note here, Durant in this helicopter crash survives perfectly fine because this is the only cast member who returns for a series of Darkman direct-to-video sequels.
So, and we'll have a picture up so you can see the extent of this plane crash.
You'd think would sustain a little bit of damage. It's pretty, but no, Darkman 2, The Return of Durant. He's back, because what can you do besides Durant?
And completely fine.
Now, a face from his past has returned with a vengeance.
We are going back into the arms business.
Darkman 2, The Return of Durant.
Great title. His helicopter crashed into a side of a bridge, went up in flames, crashed to the ground.
And we don't even get the...
we never even see his body.
It's not like Darkman getting thrown out of the way. You're like, okay, I can see him screaming, getting that.
Nope.
God bless him, Durant.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's all right.
And so now we're moving into the final acts of this, or final scenes.
And the logic of this one, though, Durant is done with.
Yeah, in this movie, he's dead.
Yeah.
But in reality, he comes back completely fine. So now we've moved on. Durant's dead. Liam Neeson's going after his girlfriend to bring her back, to save her from her boss boyfriend, who in the beginning seems just like a businessman type. But then at the end,
he's in bed with Durant.
He's in bed with Durant and seems equally as like villainous.
If not worse.
And apparently also used to work on high-rise apartments because he's walking on the beams as if like he's done this before.
The city of the future is his machination,
It was one of the most ridiculous scenes ever because he's all of a sudden he's like, oh, this is like a new thing. This guy is just able to walk on beams like this and dance around. And he asks like some pretty pointed questions to get Liam Neeson to kind of reveal that he's not actually who he says he is. He's not Durant, and that he is in fact Dr. Westlake there to save his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, really quickly, after some bad guy speeches, the usual bad guy speeches, and the near death of Frances McDormand, he is able to save his girlfriend. He's able to thwart the bad guys, who really were just, when you think about it, they were just building a city.
Yeah, but they were skimming money off the top. But this is the thing where fantastic line where he's holding his villain. He's about to drop him to his death, and he says, "Killing me won't, you won't solve anything.
You're not this guy."
He's giving also.
I know you too well. Dropping me, it's not really an option for you. It's not something you can live with.
And he hits him with the.
I'm learning to live with a lot of things.
I've been learning to live with a lot of things. Perfect, because he has. And gosh darn it, he drops him,
and that's the
obliterates him,
and that's the end of that. And then what's really great, because the movie ends kind of abruptly. I feel like it ends, like he drops this guy, and then she's like, happy that they're together, and like she still sees a future, and Liam Neeson's like, no.
Honey, I've changed. I'm Darkman now.
And then he just kind of goes away.
I'm a killer. I can't force you to be with, it's just
I don't
going
want
to be
you.
disappointing.
You're gonna love me because it would be pity. It'd be pity love.
I'm cut off from the world. Yeah, I'm never gonna be that guy. It's not just the outside, because she's still on the practical, the skin. Like, look, we can
figure out the skin.
Like,
thing.
look, you're pretty weird looking, but we can crack this. And I've changed inside. I'm a killer. I'm Darkman.
I'm a Darkman. I got to go do Darkman things. I got to go make more faces of other people. You know, that's what he's been doing.
He throws on the old Bruce Campbell number.
Yeah, he throws on a Bruce Campbell face.
I don't know this for sure, but I feel like this was setting up maybe a gig for Bruce to do these direct-to-DVD movies, or maybe if this did really well to do a sequel.
Yeah, but it was weird because it was just that one scene where he turns around and that
Bruce
was
Campbell's big handsome man face.
Yeah, and that was it. And
drifts
then
off into the crowd.
Drifts off into the crowd of the city, and it's Darkman. He lives in the dark.
It's Darkman.
I mean, I would say, you know, we're going through all these movies. At first, when I first started watching this movie, I was like, this is completely ridiculous and absolutely insane. I still feel that way.
Yes.
But I would say that I was pleasantly surprised as well. Because it was a fun time.
Yes, it was.
There was not a moment where I was like, is this movie still going on? It was action from jump. You know, the first scene to the last. It was a good time.
That's what's also crazy about this movie is not to drag this out, but Sam, not about dragging things out. He wanted to have this be an 85-minute short movie.
Yeah.
And it was the studio who was like, listen, we want it 105.
We need a little bit more.
Yeah, we want it 95 to 105 was his range, like at least.
Yeah.
And so he gets it to the exact 95 mark with credits, which is perfect.
Yeah, because it doesn't need to go any further.
No.
You know, we don't need to know anything else about him. We know this much. He's living in the dark shadows with his cat that
Perfect
dislikes
nugget.
him.
Sends us off for future adventures.
Yeah, I think this is a great movie to start with.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still surprised that it's the highest rated.
Yes.
Considering some of the other ones that are on this list. But
well, so that's to say, this is how we're going to run these future episodes. Is we're going to have personal rankings.
Yes.
Of where these different Liam Neeson movies fall
for us.
In relation to the other Liam Neeson action catalog films.
Yeah.
But I think both of us, big thumbs up for Darkman.
Darkman was a surprise, and it was an adventure. My daughter tried to come downstairs while I was watching it, and I said, no.
A little much.
You're going to have some freaking nightmares, kid. But as the first movie, this is the good one to start with.
Great one to start with.
Do we know which one we're doing next? I don't know if I can
Oh,
remember.
man, not off the top of my head. It might actually be The Gray.
Oh.
I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is rated higher than that.
By a hair. I think this is like 84 on Rotten Tomato, and Gray's like 79.
That's crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
But hey, all right, cool. So we will see you next time on Colosseum Neeson, and we are it sounds like it's gonna be The Gray. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.